One introduction. RZFVU. The United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only. For home building and furniture building, for just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable, wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree, but it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lungs, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom, the eco-design wood stove, and international convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. RZFVU. Purple air PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.
Hi, my name is Lily. Andrew gave you the intro to residents against wood smoke emission particulates and their concern for air pollution from indoor residential wood burning. Residents against wood smoke emission particulates, or RZEP, would like every near neighbor of an indoor residential wood burner whose wood smoke enters their yards and sickens the near neighbors to have a purple air PM 2.5 monitor hanging from the eaves of their home to measure the level of PM 2.5 entering their yards. That measurement of air pollution should be used as evidence of unnecessary air pollution, and each indoor residential wood burner should be shut down based on that evidence, one indoor residential wood burner at a time if necessary. The presentation by Andrew ended at 2 minutes 5 seconds. The same presentation by Emma starts at 2 minutes 3 seconds before the end of this podcast. So I am Lily, your timekeeper, and you can start the next podcast at 2 minutes 5 seconds in if you would not like to see the presentation by Andrew a second time. This presentation by me, Lily, ends at 5 minutes in. What you will see in the main content of this RZEP podcast will be news about air pollution from indoor residential wood burning and how that air pollution is being combated by ordinary people just like you who are unfortunately near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners at this time. There will also be news about unnecessary and highly polluting use of wood as fuel in industrial wood burners and preventable air pollution from wood burning wildfires. There will also be news about air pollution from PM 2.5 from gas-powered cars. There will also be news about airborne diseases which are also preventable with vaccines such as COVID-19 and measles and whooping cough, to name just a few. In 2025, Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates is also concerned with combating the Trump destruction of government funding for programs which protect human health through the Department of Health and Human Services, and Trump destruction of programs which fund the science and medical research plan to protect human health from preventable illnesses. Protecting human health is a patriotic act, and our defense against enemies is weakened if we are not as healthy as we can be. Heat pump rebates are now offered by the federal government, distributed through the eligible United States, are available in 2025, and are the best, cleanest, and now cheapest alternative to indoor residential wood burning if that burning is actually done to purportedly save money. Wind and solar as sources of the electricity that powers heat pumps and electric cars is also cheaper than burning wood. The adverse health effects that are caused by indoor residential wood burning also come at a cost to near neighbors, both in shortening and ending their lives, and in actual hospital, clinic, and funeral costs. Instead of being compensated monetarily, near neighbors should instead be able to achieve immediate relief by stopping indoor residential wood burning in their hyper-localized neighborhoods, which relief readings from purple air PM 2.5 monitors used as evidence of air pollution will help them achieve. Welcome to news about hopeful scientific and medical achievements that will also help us achieve the goal of clean air to breathe.
Web 57DHYAFZZFLYY, July 24, 2026. Stopping wood burning by season the plan up to 2027. Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates uses short excerpts from recent posts on the National Defense Resources Council NRDC website to point out that NRDC lawsuit reasonings could be useful in any future lawsuits which could be brought to stop indoor residential wood burning. Indoor residential wood burning endangers the health of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. Particulate matter is emitted by fossil fuel burning, such as coal burning, natural gas burning. Liquefied natural gas burning and oil burning particulates are emitted, as well as indoor residential wood burning and wood burning power plants and wildfire wood burning. If cheaper and clean alternatives to fossil fuel burning and wood burning for heat, such as wind and solar, are blocked by Trump in order to boost fossil fuel and wood sales and use as dirty energy, the air globally is less clean and the air in neighborhoods is less clean. We are experiencing the wildfire wood smoke incursions into the United States, largely from U.S. West Coast and Canadian fires reminiscent of June 2023, now in July of 2026. Lawsuits make a dent in what the Trump administration can do destructively to stymie clean air only until around 2027 if midterm elections go the way of Democrats as hoped for and predicted. The economic concerns of voters in the November 2026 midterms can be appealed to by pointing out that subsidies for reopening coal plants, for instance, is a drain on economic resources and no economic favor to the average voter for that reason, as well as contributing to higher utility bills and increased healthcare costs in the future for lung cancer and other unnecessary health emergencies brought on by air pollution from both fossil fuel burning and wood burning. Stopping wood burning by season the plan up to 2027. FLYYA seasons of wood burning: U.S. winter 2025 to winter 2027. FLYYB spring forward to war and wood burning spring 2026. FLYYC summer of wood burning smoke 2026. FLYYD fall back to stopping wood burning 2026. FLYYE winter fall back stopping wood burning 2027 continues. FLYYA seasons of wood burning: U.S. winter 2025 to winter 2027. Working backward from the envisioned winter of 2027. FLYYE what actions will the Natural Resources Defense Council NRDC take to thwart Trump air polluting practices, especially Trump actions to stop clean energy, such as wind and solar, by the winter of 2027 when a new democratically elected U.S. Congress returns on January 1st, 2027? In what way will voters enable environmentalists like the NRDC and Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates in winter 2027? Impeachment and removal from office of Trump, Vance, and the Trump cabinet, including Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates is concerned with threats to the health of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burning. The particulate emissions from indoor residential wood burning are the same as the particulate emissions from wildfire wood burning and biomass wood burning. Emissions from biomass power plants wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 particulates as the fossil fuel. Coal burning wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel. Natural gas burning. The Natural Resources Defense Council brings lawsuits and has brought lawsuits against the Trump administration regarding air pollution threats from Trump continuing to allow operation of fossil fuel burning power plants. The analogies to air polluting biomass wood burning power plants are clear. PM 2.5 refers to particulates of 2.5 micrometer size, which are the perfect size to infiltrate the human lung, setting off a cascade of human health problems, including cancer and early death. The Natural Resources Defense Council brings lawsuits and has brought lawsuits against the Trump administration regarding shutting down development of wind farms and solar farms and support for electric vehicles and electric vehicle charging stations. Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates believes that alternatives to dirty energy, such as wind and solar energy and electric vehicles and electric vehicle charging stations powered by a modern electric grid that extends to all rural areas, are needed to provide alternatives to indoor residential wood burning when wood burning is instead used for home heating or home cooking. When lack of alternatives are some excuses given for wood burning, the fact that wind and solar are now cheaper than wood burning or fossil fuel burning strengthen the case. Residents Against Wood Smoke Emissions makes against indoor residential wood burning. Indoor residential wood burning is often done for aesthetic reasons by the more wealthy segments of society, despite claims of being indigent. There are or were federal programs to help the indigent heat their homes cleanly, and there are still programs led by states to help veterans heat their homes cleanly during the winter. There were or are federal programs offering rebates for heat pumps, which are clean energy run on electricity, which should be available to all rural areas. Heat pumps can work down to 40 degrees below zero and double as air conditioners. FLYYD what actions will the Natural Resources Defense Council NRDC take to thwart Trump air polluting practices, especially Trump actions to stop clean energy, such as wind and solar, in the fall of 2026? In what way will voters enable environmentalists like the NRDC and Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates in the fall of 2026? Election of majorities of Democrats to the House of Representatives and the Senate in the fall of 2026. FLYYC what actions did the Natural Resources Defense Council NRDC take to thwart Trump air polluting practices, especially Trump actions to stop clean energy, such as wind and solar, in the summer of 2026? A lawsuit was brought to give new wind farms a fair chance. There was a victory when it was ruled the Internal Review Service must lift its discriminatory restrictions on new wind and solar projects. Excerpts edited by Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates from the National Defense Resources Council website, June 18, 2026, giving new wind farms a fair chance. Turbines at Block Island Wind Farm, located in the Atlantic Ocean 3.8 miles from Block Island, Rhode Island. Several environmental groups, including NRDC, filed an amicus brief supporting a lawsuit against the U.S. Department of Defense DoD for its abuse of a routine review process to thwart development of more than 100 new wind farms across the country. By refusing to review new wind projects, the DoD is jeopardizing around 46,000 megawatts of new generation capacity, enough electricity to power around 14 million homes for an entire year. These projects would provide affordable and reliable power, helping lower electric rates at a time of high demand and rising costs of living. June 8, 2026 victory. The IRS must lift its discriminatory restrictions on new solar and wind projects. A turbine base under construction at South Fork Wind Farm in Long Island, New York, a U South District Court ruled that the more stringent requirements for qualifying for federal energy tax credits that the Internal Revenue Service IRS placed only on wind and solar projects were illegal in her decision on the IRS notice, which made it more difficult and often more expensive for solar and wind projects to qualify. Judge Colleen Collar-Catelli wrote the natural economic consequence of the notice is less clean electricity generation capacity and higher electricity prices. FLYYB the spring of 2026. What actions did the Natural Resources Defense Council NRDC take to thwart Trump air polluting practices, especially Trump actions to stop clean energy, such as wind and solar in the spring of 2026? A lawsuit was brought to keep toxic emissions out of the air. Excerpts edited by residents against wood smoke emission particulates from the National Defense Resources Council website, March 30, 2026. Keeping toxic emissions out of the air. The J.H. Campbell Generating Plant in West Olive, Michigan, was scheduled to close May 31, 2025. However, the U.S. Department of Energy declared an emergency order on May 23, 2025, requiring the coal plant to remain available for operation. A large coalition of health, community, and environmental groups sued the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency (EPA) for violating the Clean Air Act by repealing rules that limit the emissions of fine particulate matter and toxic heavy metals such as mercury and lead. For more than a decade, the mercury and air toxic standards have been a huge boon to public health, lowering risk for cancer, asthma, and heart disease, and decreasing emissions of the neurotoxin mercury by a whopping 90% from coal burning power plants. The lawsuit also challenges the Trump EPA rollback of continuous emissions monitoring, which provides nearby communities with data on the amount of pollution coming out of power plants in real time. FLYYA from the winter of 2025 through the winter of 2026. What actions did the Natural Resources Defense Council NRDC take to thwart Trump air polluting practices, especially Trump actions to stop clean energy, such as wind and solar from the winter of 2025 to the winter of 2026? Lawsuits were brought to protect the endangerment finding, to stop LNG exports, to unfreeze EV infrastructure funds, to fight discrimination against wind and solar, to halt an illegal offshore oil and gas lease sale, to make sure the math is correct on grid reliability, to close down dirty and expensive power plants. Part 2. To make polluters pay for climate disasters, closing down dirty and expensive power plants. Part 1. Protecting communities from oil refinery chemical disasters, fighting to get drivers more miles per gallon, keeping mercury and other toxins out of our air and water, fighting for EV charging stations, opposing the ban on new wind power, unfreezing climate funds. A victory. U.S. Department of Agriculture USDA to return climate change information to website. Excerpts edited by residents against wood smoke emission particulates from the National Defense Resources Council website, March 16, 2026. Making sure the EPA values your life in its air pollution decisions. Why the endangerment finding is so critical to our fight against climate change, and how the EPA repeal of it not only goes against overwhelming scientific evidence, but also has no legal standing. NRDC, alongside more than a dozen other health and environmental groups, sued the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency (EPA) and its administrator Lee Zeldin over its illegal rescission of the 2009 endangerment finding. The finding, in which the EPA scientifically concluded that climate change imperils public health, gives the agency the authority to regulate climate emissions, such as from cars and trucks. February 17, 2026. Stopping liquefied natural gas (LNG) exports from raising energy bills and destroying the climate. An aerial view of a liquefied natural gas (LNG) tanker ship. NRDC, along with other environmental groups, sued the U.S. Department of Energy (DOE) for greenlighting the future export 20 million metric tons of liquefied natural gas (LNG) each year from a massive facility currently under construction on the Louisiana coast. January 23, 2026. Victory. Trump administration must unfreeze EV infrastructure funds. A woman charging her electric car at a public charging station in Brooklyn, New York City. A U South District Court ruled that the U.S. Department of Transportation must reinstate the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure (NEVI) program that it had unlawfully suspended in May 2025. The lawsuit, brought by 20 states and the District of Columbia, along with advocacy organizations including NRDC and the Sierra Club, successfully defended the $5 billion program that aims to build EV charging stations across the country. December 18, 2025. Fighting discrimination against wind and solar. The example of the photovoltaic solar panel arrays at Sunnyside Community Solar Project in La Plata County, Colorado. The 9-acre 1.7 megawatt solar field is owned and operated by La Plata Electric Association (LPEA) and generates an estimated 4,643,000 kilowatt hours per year, enough to power an estimated 600 homes. NRDC, as part of a broad coalition of groups from across the country, sued the Internal Revenue Service and the U.S. Department of Treasury over a new policy that places unfair restrictions on wind and solar projects. To qualify for federal energy tax credits, companies typically must prove they have begun construction by starting physical work or by spending 5% of the budget of their project before the credits expire. But without providing any explanation, the Treasury Department policy eliminates the 5% standard for solar and wind companies while leaving it in place for other energy sources. The move illegally obstructs these affordable energy options from coming online at a time of increased demand and rising electricity prices. December 16, 2025. Unfreezing funds for EV charging stations. A woman charging her electric car at a public charging station. Several environmental groups, including NRDC, sued the U.S. Department of Transportation for withholding $2.5 billion through a federal grant program for infrastructure projects that include electric vehicle charging stations in communities and transportation corridors. Earlier this year, the Trump administration illegally froze most of the $1.8 billion that had already been awarded to around 140 projects around the country, which are now in limbo. Such charging infrastructure would help lower vehicle emissions and improve air quality in local communities, a major health concern in areas with high car and truck traffic. November 18, 2000. 25. Halting an illegal offshore oil and gas lease sale and offshore oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico. Several environmental groups, including NRDC, are suing the Trump administration to stop the auctioning off of 80 million acres of the Gulf of Mexico for fossil fuel exploration and extraction in finalizing the sale, which was slated for November 17, 2025, making sure the math is correct on grid reliability. The coal-fired Dave Johnston Power Plant outside Glen Rock, Wyoming. Environmental groups, including NRDC, are challenging the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission FERC approval of a grid planning proposal that inaccurately assesses power sources favoring fossil fuels over renewable power in its evaluations concerning grid reliability. The Southwest Power Pool SPP, which serves 14 states, holds generators of renewable power such as wind and solar to a higher standard than it does coal and gas. The SPP proposal also fails to fully account for the dismal performance that fossil fuel plants have demonstrated during recent extreme winter and summer weather in the region. Such miscalculations could not only lead to less reliable electricity, but also in higher bills for ratepayers. September 26, 2025, closing down dirty and expensive power plants. Part 2. The Eddystone Generating Station in Eddystone, Pennsylvania. Several public advocacy groups, led by NRDC, filed a petition in the District of Columbia D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals to challenge the U.S. Department of Energy DOE May 2025 order to block the planned retirement of the two highly polluting units at an aging, inefficient oil and gas power plant in Pennsylvania. The owners of the Eddystone Generating Station, located along the Delaware River just south of Philadelphia, decided to close the two nearly 60-year-old units in 2023 because they were too costly to keep running. Subsequently, the regional grid operator PJM determined their loss would not harm electricity reliability. Nevertheless, under the guise of a so-called energy emergency, the DOE wants to keep the Eddystone units operational while passing the high operational costs on to consumers. August 22, 2025, making polluters pay for climate disasters. Floodwaters covering a road in Washington County, Vermont, on behalf of the Northeast Organic Farming Association and Conservation Law Foundation. NRDC is helping defend the Vermont Climate Superfund Act, a type of polluters pay law, and lawsuits brought by the Trump administration. Fossil fuel interests and Republican-led states passed last year. The act would allow the state to assess costs from large fossil companies in order to fund climate adaptation projects that would help prevent further damage to communities from climate change. July 24, 2025, closing down dirty and expensive power plants. Part 1. The J.H. Campbell coal-fired power plant in West Olive, Michigan. Consumers Energy had planned to retire the plant on May 31, 2025, but President Trump ordered it to keep operating. The president cited an energy emergency, which Michigan officials deny. NRDC, together with several public interest groups, challenged the U.S. Department of Energy DOE order to keep a dirty, old, and inefficient coal-fired power plant running past its long-planned closing date of May 31. Despite the DOE claims of a so-called energy emergency, the continued operation of the J.H. Campbell power plant in Michigan is both uneconomic and unnecessary, given that the owner of the plant has also already acquired adequate amounts of electric generation from other sources to replace the output of its aging plant. Further, the DOE actions undermine the typical regulatory process and legal decisions already carried out by state and regional authorities. Keeping the plant open for just 90 days would cost around $100 million. July 9, 2025, protecting communities from oil refinery chemical disasters. Residents of Wilmington, Signal Hill, and Long Beach suffer damaging health impacts from the toxic fumes of an oil refinery. A cyclist rides along a path near an oil refinery. Together with partners, NRDC filed a lawsuit to force the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency EPA to address the threat of hydrogen fluoride HF, used in more than 40 oil refineries across the country. HF causes serious harm to skin, muscle, bone, lungs, and other bodily tissues on contact, with sometimes fatal consequences despite the availability of safer alternatives. Refineries store massive amounts of hydrogen fluoride HF, which when released into the air forms a toxic ground-hugging fog that can travel for miles. This endangers the more than 19 million residents who live near these facilities, as well as those along train and truck routes used to transport HF. The lawsuit seeks to compel the EPA to commence rulemaking under the Toxic Substance Control Act to eliminate this unreasonable risk. June 20, 2025, fighting to get drivers more miles per gallon. NRDC, along with the Environmental Defense Fund, Sierra Club, and the Center for Biological Diversity, sued the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration over its new rule that halts enforcement of its fuel efficiency standards. Last summer, the previous administration set fuel efficiency standards that would save U.S. drivers about $23 billion at the pump and avoid burning 70 billion gallons of gasoline. The legal interpretations in the Trump new rule would significantly weaken these standards. June 12, 2025, keeping mercury and other toxins out of our air and water. A 2-unit coal and gas-fired steam station polluting the air. NRDC, as part of a coalition of 9 environmental and community groups, sued to block the Trump illegal exemption of nearly 70 coal-fired power plants from complying with updated air pollution limits. The exemptions, granted over email without public input, allow plants in 23 states to emit dangerous amounts of the neurotoxin mercury, arsenic, benzene, and other air pollutants. While the administration claims the exemptions are necessary due to national security interests and a lack of available technology, the lawsuit charges that pollution controls are not only widely available, but also currently being used by nearly all of the exempted power plants and others. May 22, 2025. Fighting for EV charging stations. An electric car parked at an evolved New York charging station in a shopping center parking lot. NRDC moved to intervene with Sierra Club, Climate Solutions, Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, Clean Air NC, West End Revitalization Association, and Plug in America in support of states suing the Federal Highway Administration for unlawfully suspending the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure NEVI program. Congress approved the $5 billion program in 2021 under the bipartisan infrastructure law to build electric vehicle charging stations across the country to support the growing adoption of zero-emission vehicles. The lawsuit argues that the Trump administration lacks the authority to defund NEVI and asks the court to reinstate the program. May 15, 2025, opposing the ban on new wind power, a wind turbine under construction. Last week, 17 states, Washington, D.C. and a Clean Energy Trade Association sued the administration over a presidential memorandum that essentially halts federal permits for all wind projects, unlawfully impeding the growing industry. The lawsuit asks the court to immediately overturn the ban and to tell the administration to process permits while the case moves forward. May 14, 2025, unfreezing climate funds workers installing rooftop solar panels on a home. NRDC filed an amicus brief in support of a district court ruling that ordered the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency (EPA) to stop its efforts to withhold billions in grants within the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund on top of the agency, offering no rational explanation for canceling the grants. The judge stated EPA lacks the authority to effectively unilaterally dismantle a program that Congress established. The agency is now appealing the decision but incorrectly claims it can replace these climate action funds or spend them in other ways, as NRDC argues such unconstitutional actions could cause $20 billion that Congress lawfully appropriated to achieve its policy objectives to be lost forever. May 12, 2025, a victory. U.S. Department of Agriculture USDA to return climate change information to website after NRDC and partners sued the U.S. Department of Agriculture USDA in February 2025 for illegally removing information on climate change from its website. The agency, in a letter filed in the U.S. South District Court of Southern New York, has agreed to restore the content and comply with federal laws regarding those web materials in the future. April 28, 2025, keeping the federal government working for the people, including the Environmental Protection Agency (EPA), when it works for the American people. NRDC joined a lawsuit with a sizable coalition of federal employee unions, nonprofit groups, and local governments to challenge the Trump executive order that instructed federal agencies to radically restructure and lay off huge numbers of staff. The lawsuit argues that only Congress has the authority to transform the federal government in this way and asks the court to stop the implementation of the executive order, which violates the bedrock constitutional principle of the separation of powers. NRDC and other partners represented by Earth Justice sue the U.S. Department of Agriculture USDA for illegally purging climate change information from its website. The Trump United States Department of Agriculture USDA violated the Freedom of Information Act, the Paperwork Reduction Act, and the Administrative Procedure Act when it removed resources that are vital to U.S. farmers. Some of the information included details on how to reduce pollution, access billions of dollars of funds for conservation practices, and farm more effectively amid extreme weather. The lawsuit seeks a court order requiring the restoration of the web pages and that the agency adhere to the law when making future changes to its website. Webisode 57DHYAFZZFLYY. January 11, 2026, Congress is racing to undo thousands of cuts to federal science programs. Cartoon 1 of 5. Congress is racing to undo thousands of cuts to federal science programs. Cell 1. The current government bid for an overall cut in scientific funding to $154 billion from $198 billion would be a plunge of 22%. Cell 2. This week, the Senate Appropriations Committee released a bipartisan package of bills. Cell 3 that largely scraps the current government planned cuts to federal science programs. Cell 4. Congress will set aside roughly $188 billion for federal research. Cartoon 2 of 5. Congress is racing to undo thousands of cuts to federal science programs. Cell 1. $188 billion for federal research will only be a drop of 4%. Cell 2. This rejects the current government push to let our competitors do laps around us. Cell 3. Last year, the current government administration called for a cut in federal basic research of more than 1/3. Cell 4. The current government sought even larger cuts for the National Science Foundation, which sponsors much of the nation's basic research. Cartoon 3 of 5. Congress is racing to undo thousands of cuts to federal science programs. Cell 1. The current government proposed that the National Science Foundation (NSF) budget be slashed to $3.9 billion. Cell 2. From $8.8 billion, a drop of 56%. Cell 3. The Senate package countered with a reduction to $8.75 billion. Cell 4, or less than 1%. Cartoon 4 of 5. Congress is racing to undo thousands of cuts to federal science programs. Cell 1. The Senate package includes $24.4 billion for NASA, a 1.6% cut. Cell 2. $8.8 billion for the Environmental Protection Agency (EPA), a 4% cut. Cell 3. $8.4 billion for the Department of Energy Office of Science, a 1.9% increase. Cell 4. $6.2 billion for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, roughly flat. Cartoon 5 of 5. Congress is racing to undo thousands of cuts to federal science programs. Cell 1. The Senate and the House are now not far apart for negotiations on a final budget. Cell 2. The House's moves on 2026 science budgeting add up to $185 billion, which is close to the Senate figure of $188 billion. Cell 3, but this cannot undo the damage that the current government administration frenzy of budget cutting and administrative chaos. Cell 4 brought to the nation's scientific establishment.
Webisode 57DHYAFZZFLYY January 11, 2025 If science funds are restored, then fund alternatives to wood burning. Cartoon 1 of 5 If science funds are restored, then fund alternatives to wood burning. Cell 1 fund heat pumps that work down to 40 degrees below zero and also act as air conditioners. Cell 2 fund extending a smart electric grid everywhere, including all rural areas. Cell 3 fund wind and solar energy sources that produce electricity sent to the smart grid. Cell 4 fund batteries that store the electricity produced by wind and solar long-term for use in emergencies. Cartoon 2 of 5 If science funds are restored, then cut dirty energy that is now funded. Cell 1 cut funds for biofuels such as wood stoves and wood burning for home heating. Cell 2 cut funds for biofuels such as corn-based ethanol for automobile fuel. Cell 3 cut funds for wood and other biofuels used to replace coal burning in industrial plants. Cell 4 cut funds for fossil fuels as well as cut funds for biofuels. Cartoon 3 of 5 If science funds are restored, enact regulations that fund removal of indoor residential wood-burning appliances. Cell 1 fund resident-owned Purple Air PM 2.5 monitors. Cell 2 given free to any near neighbor of an indoor residential wood burner. Cell 3 whose wood-burning PM 2.5 emissions enter the yard of the near neighbor and sicken them. Cell 4 use the data downloadable from the Purple Air map as evidence to shut down each indoor residential wood-burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary. Cartoon 4 of 5 If science funds are restored, enact regulations that make electric vehicles and public transport affordable. Cell 1 reinstate rebates for electric vehicles. Cell 2 fund high-speed electric transport that will be low cost to all. Cell 3 enact fuel regulations to discourage production of gas-powered vehicles. Cell 4 fund research that makes production of electric vehicles efficient and cost-effective. Cartoon 5 of 5 If science funds are restored, enact regulations that make home heating and transport by electric vehicle affordable. Cell 1 do not allow subsidies for luxury electric vehicles. Cell 2 do not allow subsidies for home heating for individuals making over a certain salary. Cell 3 tax the rich to provide clean energy subsidies for the middle income and poor. Cell 4 keep in mind that the Energy Department and the EPA should work to stop air pollution that harms human health as well as slow climate change.
Webisode 57DHYAFZZFLYY January 4, 2026 Would smoke affect the family adversely? Cartoon 1 of 2 Cell 1 When you know you are not protecting your family well enough. When you replace air filters and air purifiers every month instead of every 6 months. Just do not burn wood indoors residentially to begin with. Cell 2 When you are scared whenever someone opens a window. Just do not burn wood indoors residentially to begin with. Cartoon 2 of 2 Cell 1 It gives me no great joy to say this. Smog towers do not work. Cell 2 Carbon capture does not work. Just do not burn wood industrially in place of coal to begin with.
Red Green Fox here. The quick Red Green Fox jumped over the barriers to clean air. Red Green Fox here, ready to sing to you the names of the 2025 major wood-burning biomass industry subsidy opponents. 1. Biofuel Watch. 2. Bulkley Valley Stewardship Coalition of British Columbia, Canada. 3. Kommite Schöne Luft, which means Beautiful Air Committee in German. 4. Dogwood Alliance. 5. Equity Group Foundation, nicknamed EGF. 6. Environmental Paper Network, nicknamed EPN. 7. Natural Resources Defense Council, nicknamed NRDC. 8. Prakaunia Narzexwisystki Istit, which means Workshop for All Beings in Polish. 9. Rachel Carson Council. 10 Solutions for Our Climate, nicknamed SFOC.
Cat's corner strategy with Tiger and Leone. Saying the quiet part out loud. Roar. Hi, I am Tiger. Our human asked us to get up from our naps and start Cat's corner strategy with Tiger and Leone. She gave us a list of internet allies which we will post for her here.
Hi. I am Leonie. It is better for your mental fitness to go to these websites than to go to bro sites for advice. Substack letters from an American Heather Cox Richardson. Substack your local epidemiologist. The Midas Touch. The Guardian. The New York Times.
One introduction. The United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only for home building and furniture building. For just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry, and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable, wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree. But it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen, and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lung, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom. The Eco-Design Wood Stove International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. View purple air. PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.